Don't miss the final Frist Friday of the year on November 14th. Enjoy a 1960s-themed celebration inspired by the Frist Art Museum's latest exhibition, Paul McCartney Photographs 1963 to 1964, Eyes of the Storm. DJ John Stamps will be spinning classic hits all night long. Enjoy art, music, creative activities, and retro fun. Dress to impress and get ready to twist and shout. Get details and advance tickets at fristartmuseum.org. Today on CityCast Nashville, we're talking about how the recent government shutdown is affecting families across Nashville who depend on SNAP benefits. Nearly 60,000 Nashvillians and almost 700,000 Tennesseans rely on SNAP to put food on the table. With those benefits delayed, food banks are being stretched to their limits. I'm sitting down with Signe Anderson, Senior Director of Nutrition Advocacy at the Tennessee Justice Center, to talk about what's at stake, why the state's $5 million in food bank funding won't fill the gap, and how listeners can help right now. It's Tuesday, November 11th. I'm your host, Marie Cecile Anderson, and this is what Nashville's talking about. Over the weekend, Nashville saw more evidence of growing food insecurity as federal food aid remains on hold. WPLN reported that a food and winter coat giveaway at a North Nashville church drew cars that lined up for 3 hours even before the event started. Nearly 500 people received food, and surveys showed that half were SNAP recipients, with 80% saying they continue to need food assistance. Signe, how did we get to this point?
The main reason is because of the government shutdown. And one of the programs that needs to be funded is SNAP. And so once we got into month 2 of the shutdown, it was not aligning for SNAP to be funded, although there is funding for SNAP. So it's a little complicated, but also shouldn't be complicated in that we've always found a way to fund the SNAP program in past government shutdowns.
That was going to be my next question. Just in the history of the SNAP benefits program, have the resources ever been withheld?
Never. And it's never been a question. It's always been a bipartisan agreement that SNAP will be funded regardless of a shutdown. And we did it through the month of October. The last government shutdown, the longest government shutdown, lasted 35 days under the previous Trump administration. And during that time, the administration, along with USDA, did everything in their power to make sure that SNAP was funded. And the benefits actually got out a few days before we slipped into the second month of the shutdown.
Okay, so a lot has been changing so rapidly, but at the time of this recording, it's still unclear when or how much of the SNAP benefits will be sent to Tennessee families. What do we know right now?
Yeah, so right now we know that the Senate voted to end the shutdown, but we are still waiting on the House. So it looks like we're closer to the shutdown ending than ever before, but still we're on day 10 and SNAP benefits have not yet gone out to families.
Now, this may sound like a really dumb question, but I have to ask because I'm confused and I've been having this conversation with friends and family, but I thought Congress controlled the purse. How has the Trump administration had the authority to dictate money for federal food assistance?
You're right. The Congress does have the power to make that decision, and they did it under the previous administration. So there are choices that are being made this time around that impact families and hurt families. So it's unclear why they've taken this position not to fund families because it's always been a priority. If you look at some of the tweets that have gone out from Trump in the administration, which has also added to the confusion, one of the tweets said, "We're going to fund SNAP. It would be my honor to fund SNAP." But then in a following tweet, there was a threat that went out that if Democrats didn't do what was asked of them to do, then the president would withhold the SNAP benefits. So there's an element to this that feels political, and where it's never been that way in the past with the SNAP program. Both parties have always put that aside and made sure that funding was available to families.
Yes. So never before have we seen a food crisis become political.
Right.
In an interview with News Channel 5 last week, you said in emergency situations, the state has been able to tap into funding to support families. And I would say this is an emergency. In your opinion, why then haven't we tapped into Tennessee's main rainy day fund, known as the Reserve for Revenue Fluctuations, which is projected to be over $2.2 billion for the 2026 fiscal year, making it the largest it has ever been? Signe, why can't we dip into that?
We could. The governor has the discretion to take up to $1 billion of that money to put it towards whatever the current emergency is. But instead, the decision was to put forth $5 million to support food banks. And it's very important to support food banks. And our food banks have been doing more than they've ever been expected to do before to fill the gap during this time. But $5 million is just a drop in the bucket compared to what SNAP benefits brings to the state. So already as of November 1st, because USDA is not getting funding out to states, for Tennessee, that means $145 million is not coming to the state to families. That's a lot of money, and that would pay for a lot of groceries that's not getting through to families. And so the governor's decision to support food banks with $5 million is not enough. It's not enough to make sure that families get fed during this time. And another statistic that I've shared, or another quote that I think is really important for people to understand, is that while food banks do this great work, one food bank meal is the equivalent of 9 meals that the SNAP program provides. And so the expectation that charity can solve this problem is a misunderstanding. It's not possible for our pantries and our food banks to make up the gap of what SNAP provides. SNAP is the best anti-hunger program that we have in the United States. It was created out of the Great Depression, and since then has continued to work effectively to help people who are struggling with hunger, who are struggling with poverty. And the program ebbs and flows in tandem with the economy. So if the economy is challenged, if unemployment is low, the SNAP program kicks in and we see higher participation in the SNAP program during those times. And then once the economy settles and jobs come back to people, or inflation isn't addressed, then we see the SNAP program become less utilized, as it is during times of higher economic distress.
You know, when most of us want to learn a new language, it's not because we're dying to memorize grammar tables or ace a quiz. It's because we actually want to speak it out in the real world with real people. And that's what Babbel is great at, getting you there fast. Hey, it's Michael Zibiak, Chief Revenue Officer here at CityCast. My daughter's a senior in high school, and after graduation, we're taking a father-daughter trip to Spain. And right now, my Spanish is, let's just say, very high school level. Shout out to Senior Patty from Syosset High School. You tried. When we're in Spain, I'd love to do more than just ask where the bathroom is. I want to be able to chat with locals, order tapas, and actually connect, not just read the menu and point. So I'm starting with Babbel. It's all about small steps, big wins, and it's super easy to fit into my life. Honestly, with how busy things get here at CityCast, I love that Babbel's bite-sized, 10-minute lessons fit right into my day, between meetings or over my morning coffee. I'm excited to pick up some real-world Spanish before we go, so we can experience Spain like locals, not tourists. Doesn't that sound better? Right now, Babbel's got a special deal for our listeners. Get up to 55% off your subscription at babbel.com/citycast. That's BABBEL.com/citycast for up to 55% off. Rules and restrictions may apply. Gracias and adios.
Guess what? CityCast has some news. I'm Sean McPherson, the host of CityCast Twin Cities.
And I'm Jane Sihu, and I'm the host of CityCast Seattle. Hey, if you have a friend in one of our cities, can you text them for us?
Yeah, something, simple like, hey, how's that rash doing? And do you listen to podcasts? Because I have one you're definitely going to like. After that, tell them that CityCast has helped you become more informed, more involved, and more connected to your amazing city.
We're going to help that person you know in Seattle who's been trying to make friends.
And we're also going to do that for that guy you only kind of knew in college who moved back to the Twin Cities after graduation.
Don't we all have that guy?
Yeah, and usually that guy is named Todd.
So did you text them yet?
Jane, let's just wait a minute. We don't want to rush anybody. We'll do a little small talk. How's everything going in Seattle?
Beautiful, beautiful. Fall leaves popping. How about Twin Cities?
Today, beautiful and sunshiny in St. Paul. Okay, Jane, I bet they are done texting by now, and I just want to remind them, hey, you, please tell that friend to subscribe to CityCast Twin Cities or Seattle, wherever you get your podcasts.
Or if you don't want to text them and you're really just on Instagram sending them DMs all the time with like funny videos, send them a DM of our latest videos. You can find us at CityCast Twin Cities or CityCast Seattle on Instagram. Thanks.
As I was researching and preparing for this interview today, I read that the budget bill, or the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was passed over the summer, will possibly make it more complicated for Tennesseans to apply for SNAP benefits.
Yeah, it's true. The SNAP program is there's a lot of questions and a lot of information that you have to provide in order to participate in the program. So there are a lot of things to make sure that people who are applying are truly eligible for the program. But because of the budget reconciliation, the Big Beautiful Bill, in the passage of that legislation, there were major cuts to SNAP and major changes to the program, including the rules of how to determine whether or not somebody's eligible to participate. And one of the things they did was ratchet up the work requirement piece. There's always been work requirements around the SNAP program, but this time the administration added families be subject to the work requirement. In the past, anybody with children was not required to find work. Most families do work. Like if they can work, most people do work. But if there is some situation where a family can't work, or just the expectation and the understanding that being a parent is work. And sometimes a parent needs to be home with a kid or be available to do the work that a parent has to do. And that is not counted as work underneath the SNAP program. And so we're seeing a lot more families that will be impacted and will struggle either to get onto the program or continue to be able to keep the program. And not just families, also seniors. Seniors are also going to be implicated. Veterans, houseless individuals. We work with a lot of people who are housing insecure. And up until this bill passing, there was a waiver that did not require a person who's homeless to have to meet a work requirement. For a long time, for the past several years, we thought we were getting closer to separating out the work requirement from the SNAP program. Because if you want somebody to work and want somebody to be supported, the best thing to do is to make sure that their basic needs are met. So making sure that people have food is the best way to make sure that people are able to work and continue to work. And again, the majority of people who can work do work. And so there's a lot of rules that have been created around work requirements that don't need to exist, and it make it challenging for people to participate in the program.
In Metro Services' annual Community Needs Evaluation Report, they discovered that 1 in 10 Nashvillians is food insecure. 1 in 5 Nashville children don't have enough food to eat. And half of Nashville workers earn below a living wage. I want our listeners to take that information in. Learning that, will Nashville's food crisis go away once the SNAP benefits are reinstated?
It won't go away, but it'll be less harsh and less severe to families. As long as families have SNAP, it is a major relief for families, but we have to continue to support the program and other programs that directly impact low-income families. But having the SNAP program back strengthens our ability to fight hunger. With SNAP there, it allows people to go to the grocery store and support their families and allows them to divert the little money that they have towards other things. Right now, with people not having access to their SNAP benefits, individuals live on very thin margins. They don't have savings that they can dip into during times like this. And so if they aren't able to get their SNAP benefits, that means they have to take money from what they would pay in rent or what they would pay to put gas in their car. They just don't have the flexibility of dipping into savings to make sure that they can put food on the table. And so the implication is not just that we see families going hungry, which should be in and of itself enough for this not to happen. But if somebody doesn't have the money to pay for food, it ends up implicating so many other things, whether or not they're able to pay their rent and stay in their home, whether or not they're able to keep the lights on, whether or not they're able to afford medicine or go to the doctor, because it costs money to go to the doctor. And if you have to decide between feeding your family or going to your checkup or going to take care of something that is a medical issue, you're going to feed your family first. You're going to feed your children first. We've been hearing from families over the past couple weeks, and a lot of the families that we hear from are families that have kids, and those families are telling us, we will do everything in our power to make sure that our kids are fed, but that probably means I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to be able to pay bills. And we'll have to turn to resources like the food bank, which is something that most families don't have to do because they're connected to the SNAP program. And I think the other thing that is important to keep in mind during this shutdown, there are a lot of people who normally don't rely on SNAP, but are now not getting paid. We're talking TSA agents, we're talking military, we're talking anybody connected to the government. And there are a significant number of people in the state of Tennessee who have checks that come from the government and they're not getting paid. And those individuals also are relying on the emergency food system if they can't afford food to eat. And so not only now that we're in November and families aren't getting the SNAP program, but we're also have all the families that aren't getting paid, the TSA agents, the military families, the other government workers that aren't being supported right now. So it's a real failure of our government right now to not be supporting families who need the support most.
Looking ahead, what's next? What developments are you paying closest attention to right now?
Yeah. So over this past month and 10 days of the shutdown, I think it brings to light how important the program is. And so we're going to continue to advocate for better support of the SNAP program and making sure that if we ever get to this situation again, that we avoid people seeing a lapse in the benefits. The other major thing that we were working on before the shutdown that you brought up were just the changes to the SNAP program in July under the budget reconciliation bill, the big, beautiful bill. And there were a lot of harmful things that happened to the SNAP program. And so we're doing a lot of just information sharing about the SNAP program and trying to lift up the importance of the program and also help some of the people that are going to lose their SNAP benefit, that shouldn't lose their SNAP benefit, because there's still a need for an individual who's houseless to be able to access food. There's still a need for veterans who sometimes can't find work, or maybe they're retired and can't get back into the workforce. They should still have food to eat through the SNAP program. And so there's a lot of work to make sure that SNAP continues to be protected and that it is as strong as possible for our most vulnerable people.
You work essentially on the ground with these people in need. What are you hearing most from them? Any stories that you can share?
We're seeing frustration with a system that is supposed to work for them. We're also seeing a lot more people sharing their story, which has been really important during the past few weeks to make sure that Congress understands, elected officials understand who participates in these programs, and everybody in every county, both Republican and Democrat, participate in the SNAP program, understanding that seniors participate in the SNAP program, understanding that 66% of SNAP recipients in Tennessee are households with children. Like, there's all this information about the SNAP program that comes to light because of what families are sharing with us. Some of the stuff that we know by heart, but the rest of the public and elected officials too don't know. And so I think hearing from families about the importance of the SNAP program, some of the barriers that they face when trying to access the program, all of those are coming to light in the past couple of weeks. And also letting people know the reality of how the program works. SNAP stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And so it's supposed to be a supplemental benefit. And most people don't understand that. And I think in some cases, they think that families receive a lot of money on the SNAP program. It's actually only about $6 a day per person on average. And $6 a day is not enough to buy groceries. We often see seniors and people in just a one-person household receiving just $24 for the entire month. That's less than $1 a day. The other thing to the supplemental piece is, for a lot of families, it's not supplemental. This is all that they have to survive on. And it's just $188 on average that an individual receives in a month in SNAP. So it's not a lot of money, but it's enough to support families in a time of need. And that's what SNAP is. It's a program to help people in a time of need.
What do you say to folks who say these people are just lazy and living off of the government?
The true reality of SNAP, because the majority of people on SNAP work if they can. A lot of people on SNAP are children. A lot of people on SNAP are seniors or individuals with disabilities. And for the people that do work, we're talking, I think it's about 24% of the people who participate in SNAP are cashiers, and a significant portion are janitors and people who drive taxis or Lyft or Uber. They're gig workers. The majority of people on SNAP are working if they can work. And in fact, so many of our clients come to us and say, I am working 2 jobs or 3 jobs even, and I'm still eligible for SNAP. So I think it's important to understand that folks that are working on at minimum wage aren't making a lot of money. And those are the folks that rely on the SNAP program. And that this misconception that people aren't working is a problem. And also just, it's a problem to associate SNAP benefits with work. Like, the two should not be held against one another. They should really be a support to one another. SNAP should be there for everyone if they're struggling to find work. And again, many of the people are working there, but they don't meet the work requirement, which is 20 hours a week. And so we'll often see people underemployed who are doing their best to meet the requirements, but also feed themselves and their families.
What has surprised you in how Nashville has shown up during this time?
People in Nashville clearly care and will give you the shirt off their back in order to make sure that people have what they need. And people have been showing up. Nonprofits and food banks who were already struggling to meet the need have been supported through food drives and through other means. And so it's been really impressive how people have been stepping up to fill the gap during this time. But I think everyone who's there and participating in those food drives will tell you they've had to turn people away, and the need is so great. And it's a misconception to expect and think that charity food can make up the gap of need there is if we don't support our families through the social safety net programs like SNAP and like the WIC program and school meals. Like, all of those programs are really important and work in tandem with our food banks and the emergency food system to make sure that families are supported. But the response has been immense and has been really, really uplifting over the past week or two.
We've focused a lot today on SNAP benefits, obviously, but the Tennessee Justice Center has also played an instrumental role in protecting the Affordable Care Act over the years. How do you expect healthcare changes to affect Nashvillians in the coming year?
Unfortunately, it looks like the tax credit has not been saved, and prices are looking to increase right now. So there is a continued fight to make sure that healthcare is affordable for families. And I think we'll be hearing more in the next few days about what that looks like. But TJC will continue to fight for affordable healthcare, which right now feels like it's not being protected in the way that it should.
And how can we shout out Tennessee Justice Center on your behalf?
Yes, for folks who might need to be connected to the programs, we're there to help. If there are people that run organizations that work with low-income individuals, we partner with people across the state and are always game and willing to share information about SNAP or the other programs that we work with, organizations that want to make sure that their families are connected to food benefits or to healthcare. Please see us as a resource and also as a willing partner. We really want to work with folks across the state that are also doing this work, but also want to make sure that we're reaching individuals who are eligible for this program. So part of our work is helping people who've been wrongfully denied SNAP or healthcare and help them get connected. And we do a lot of advocacy at the state and federal level as well, making sure that these programs remain protected and that access is improved for people who are struggling to make ends meet.
Well, I can't speak for all of Nashville, but I will right now. Thank you so much for everything that you do. And thank you for making time for us so last minute. And we'll be in touch because the story seems to still be developing.
Thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Nashville. And don't forget, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Nashville neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friends, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Nashville newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Doodles.